Hey there. Tonight, we're going back, way back, to a time when your survival depended on understanding a distant flag waving through smoke, or the faint blast of a horn over the screams of dying men. You are standing on a muddy field somewhere in ancient Gaul, around 200 BCE. No radio, no phone, no way to call for help. Just you, your commander 300 paces away, through a wall of shields and spears, and the desperate need to know whether to charge or retreat. Welcome, friend. Before we begin this journey through forgotten battlefields, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Are you winding down after a long day, seeking comfort in the strange routines of those who came before us? So, dim the lights, get comfortable, pull those blankets a little closer, because tonight, you're not just learning history they never taught you in school, you're living it. You're a Celtic warrior, a Roman signifier, a Germanic scout, experiencing the brutal, mundane, strangely beautiful ways ancient Europeans screamed across battlefields when silence meant death. Let's begin. You wake before dawn in your tribal village, and already you can hear the distant war horns echoing across the valley. You're a young Celtic warrior, barely 17 summers old, and today you will join your first real battle against the invading Roman legions. Your stomach twists with fear, but you force yourself to stand, pulling on your wool tunic, still damp from yesterday's rain. The communication begins before the battle even starts. Your chieftain's runner, a boy even younger than you, arrives breathless at your family's roundhouse. He speaks no words, simply shows you a carved stick with 3 notches. 3 notches means assemble at the sacred oak by mid-morning. This is how your people have communicated urgent information for generations. No writing, no shouting across distances that would alert enemies. Just symbols, runners, and trust. You nod, and the boy sprints toward the next house. You eat cold porridge while your mother oils your leather armor in silence, her fingers trembling slightly. She knows what those 3 notches mean. Everyone does. The Romans are closer than they were yesterday. You step outside and see smoke signals rising from the eastern hill, 2 columns of black smoke against the grey morning sky. 2 columns mean enemy forces are advancing. The smoke lingers, thick and deliberate, making sure every village within sight receives the warning. The sacred oak stands ancient and gnarled at the village centre, its branches spreading like protective arms over the gathering warriors. You arrive to find nearly 60 men already assembled, their breath forming small clouds in the cold morning air. Your chieftain, Brennus, stands on a large flat stone beneath the oak, but he does not speak, not yet. Instead, he waits, watching the paths leading from distant farmsteads, counting heads. Communication in your tribe means respecting silence when silence serves purpose. When the last stragglers arrive, Brennus finally raises his right arm, fist closed. This simple gesture means, attention, listen now. Every man falls silent immediately. Then, Brennus begins using hand signals you have practiced since childhood. He points 2 fingers at his eyes, then sweeps his arm toward the eastern hills. Watch the east. He makes a walking motion with 2 fingers, then holds up both hands, fingers spread wide. Enemy forces, 20 units. In your tribe's counting, each spread hand represents 10, so 20 means roughly 200 enemy soldiers. He touches his chest, then makes a circular motion encompassing all the warriors. We stand together. Finally, he raises his spear and shakes it twice. Prepare for battle. No words spoken aloud. Why? Because Roman scouts might be hiding within earshot, and spoken Celtic carries farther than you realize in these quiet valleys. The march toward battle begins, and you realize that communication during movement requires entirely different methods than communication while stationary. Your warband stretches into a long column along a muddy forest path, and you cannot see the front or rear of your own forces. Brennus assigns 3 hornblowers, spacing them evenly through the column. Each carries a carnix, a tall war trumpet topped with a bronze boar's head that produces an otherworldly shriek when blown. You are positioned near the middle of the column, and you watch the first hornbearer carefully. If he raises his carnix to his lips, you must watch what kind of blast he produces. 1 long note means continue forward. 2 short blasts mean halt immediately. 3 rapid notes mean danger, take cover. A continuous wavering sound means retreat now. These are not random noises. Your people have standardized these signals over generations of warfare. As you walk, you also notice scouts running parallel to the column through the forest, staying just within sight. They use bird calls to communicate. A cuckoo means path is clear ahead. A ka means possible threat detected. You are not supposed to respond to these calls. Only the chieftain and his lieutenants react to them. The forest is full of real birds, but you have trained your ear to distinguish the subtle difference between a genuine crow and a human imitating one. It is a matter of rhythm and tone. 2 hours into the march, the column halts abruptly. You hear 2 short blasts from the lead carnix, and the signal is immediately repeated by the middle and rear hornbearers, so that everyone in the long column receives the message simultaneously. This repetition system is crucial because sound does not travel well through dense forest. You press yourself against a large oak tree and wait, your heart hammering. Silence descends, broken only by the rustle of leather and the quiet breathing of 59 other warriors trying to be still. Then you see hand signals being passed down the line. A warrior ahead of you catches the attention of the man beside him, touches 2 fingers to his eyes, then points right into the forest. Watch right side. He makes a walking gesture. Movement detected. Then he holds up 3 fingers. 3 enemies or threats. Each man passes the signal backward until it reaches you. You turn and repeat the gestures to the warrior behind you, a grizzled older man named Tautus, who nods grimly. This relay system means that even though you are 50 paces from the front of the column and cannot see Brennus, you still receive his tactical information within moments. The silence stretches. Everyone waits. Then, a ka from the forest, clearly human-made. The scout is signaling false alarm or threat passed. 1 long carnix blast sounds, and the column begins moving again. Your hands are shaking slightly as you continue walking. By midday, you emerge from the forest onto open grassland, and the nature of communication changes instantly. Open terrain means visibility, which means different signals. Brennus orders the column to spread into a loose skirmish line, and you find yourself standing shoulder to shoulder with Tautus on one side and a young man named Catavolcus on the other. Ahead, perhaps 500 paces distant, you can see the Roman camp. Rows of leather tents, ordered and geometric in a way that seems unnatural to your Celtic eyes. And there, planted in the ground at intervals, are the standards. The Romans use pole-mounted symbols to communicate, and even from this distance you can see them. Eagle standards for full legions, smaller standards for cohorts, red flags, blue flags. Each one means something to the Romans, though you do not know what. Brennus raises a circular wooden shield, painted with spiral patterns, and moves it in a slow circle above his head. This means observe, but do not engage. You watch as the Romans notice your warband. A horn sounds from their camp, 3 descending notes that mean nothing to you, but clearly mean something urgent to them. Soldiers begin pouring from tents, forming into straight lines with a speed that makes your stomach clench. They move like water flowing into prepared channels, each man knowing exactly where to stand. The waiting is worse than fighting. You stand in the grass for what feels like hours, but is probably only 20 minutes, watching the Romans assemble their formations. During this tense standoff, you learn that communication is not always about conveying orders. Sometimes communication is about projecting confidence to your own men and fear into your enemies. Brennus begins to sing. It is a low, droning war chant in the old tongue, and within moments, every warrior in your line has joined. The sound rises and falls like waves, wordless and haunting. The Romans can hear it, you are certain. You can see some of them shifting nervously in their perfect lines. This is psychological communication. The chant tells the Romans, we are not afraid. We are many. We are united. It also tells you and your fellow warriors the same thing, bolstering courage that threatens to crumble. Between verses of the chant, you hear the Romans begin their own response. It is not singing, it is rhythmic pounding. Thump, 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 thump. The sound rolls across the grassland like thunder. This tells you, we are disciplined, we are organized, we are legion. Your mouth goes dry. The chanting and pounding continue, building in intensity, a conversation of intimidation between two armies that have not yet exchanged a single blow. The chanting stops abruptly when Brennus raises his spear high, holding it perfectly vertical for 3 heartbeats, then dropping it forward to point at the Roman line. This is the signal you have trained for but never used in actual combat. Advance slowly. The entire warband begins moving forward in a loose line, maintaining intervals of roughly 2 arm lengths between each man. You walk slowly through knee-high grass, your eyes fixed on the Roman shields ahead. As you advance, you notice warriors on the flanks carrying large rectangular shields painted with bright colors: red, yellow, blue. These are mobile signal boards. The warrior on the far right flank tilts his red shield to catch the sunlight, flashing it 3 times. This tells Brennus that the right flank is ready and in position. The left flank warrior does the same with his blue shield. Brennus acknowledges by raising his spear again. This silent system of signals works only in daylight and only when warriors maintain line of sight with their commanders. You understand now why Brennus keeps the formation loose rather than bunched. Tight formations make communication impossible. You need to see the signals being given. At 50 paces from the Roman line, a carnix blast sounds. 3 rapid notes. Halt! Every man stops instantly. The grass whispers around your legs. Sweat runs down your spine despite the cool air. From 50 paces away, you can now see individual Roman faces beneath their helmets. They look young. Some of them look as terrified as you feel. A Roman officer shouts something in Latin, and his entire century shifts formation, shields coming up to form a wall. You do not speak Latin, but you understand the meaning of that shield wall. It says, "Come and die against us." Brennus makes a sharp whistling sound, 2 ascending notes that mean, "Archers ready." Behind your line, a dozen men with short bows step forward. They do not loose arrows yet. They simply stand ready, arrows nocked. This is another form of communication, showing the enemy what you possess, making them factor it into their calculations. A Roman horn sounds, a braying note unlike your carnix. Immediately, Roman archers appear behind their shield wall, bows drawn. Neither side shoots. This is the strangest communication of all, the mutual acknowledgement that this battle can still stop, that someone could call retreat, that death is not yet inevitable. The moment stretches. You hear a hawk cry overhead, oblivious to the drama below. Then Brennus gives the signal that makes your blood turn to ice water. He draws his sword and raises it high, then brings it down in a savage arc. Charge! 9 to 10. The charge is chaos, but even chaos has communication. As you run screaming toward the Roman line, you hear Carnick's blast from behind your advance, but you cannot process what they mean. Your mind is too flooded with terror and rage. You see the warrior beside you take a Roman javelin in the throat and drop without a sound. You keep running. The Romans are shouting in Latin, their officers screaming orders you cannot understand. But then you hear Brennus's voice rising above the carnage, bellowing a single word in your tongue. Shields! You crash your small wooden shield into the Roman shield wall and immediately feel the impact run up your arm like lightning. The noise is deafening, metal on metal, wood splintering, men screaming. You cannot see Brennus anymore. You cannot see anything except the Roman shield directly in front of your face, painted red with a lightning bolt insignia. You hear a voice screaming, "Push! Push!" and realize it is your own voice. Communication in the midst of melee combat is primitive. Shout the simplest possible command, repeat it, hope your allies hear and obey. A hand grabs your shoulder from behind. You almost strike at it before you recognize Tautus, the older warrior who was marching behind you. He shouts directly into your ear. Brennus signals right flank collapse. Move right. You cannot verify this. You cannot see any signals. But you trust Tautus. So you begin shoving yourself rightward through the press of bodies. The battle has devolved into a nightmare of confusion, and you realize that sophisticated signal systems collapse when men are fighting for their lives at arm's length. Communication becomes desperately simple. Shout, point, pull. Tautus pulls you right, and you trust him because trust is all you have. As you move through the churning mass of warriors, you see something that makes you understand the Romans' advantage. Their centurion is standing on a raised shield, held aloft by 4 soldiers, giving him a height advantage of 3 feet over the battlefield. From that position, he can see the entire engagement and shouts orders in Latin. His soldiers hear him even through the chaos because they are trained to listen for his voice specifically. You have no such advantage. Brennus is somewhere in this hell, probably fighting in the thick of it rather than commanding from above. This is the Celtic way. Chieftains lead from the front, but it means coordination is nearly impossible. You hear a familiar sound cut through the noise, the carnix, playing a long descending note followed by 2 sharp blasts. This is the retreat signal, but only half the warriors seem to hear it or recognize it. The other half are still pushing forward, unaware that Brennus has called the withdrawal. You grab the nearest warrior, a young man whose face is so covered in blood you cannot recognize him, and scream, "Retreat! Carnix called retreat!" He stares at you blankly for 2 heartbeats. Then his eyes clear, and he begins moving backward. The retreat is as chaotic as the charge, but you notice that the warriors who fought in previous battles execute it with more skill. They move backward in small groups, shields facing the enemy, covering each other's withdrawal. You try to imitate them, moving backwards step by step, your eyes fixed on the Roman line. The Romans do not pursue aggressively, and you later learn this is because their discipline requires them to hold formation unless ordered to advance. As you stumble backward through the trampled grass, you see bodies scattered across the field. Some are moving, crawling toward your lines. Others are still. One body wears Brennus's crimson cloak. Your heart seizes in terror until you see the man's face. It is not your chieftain, just a warrior who borrowed his spare cloak. When you reach the tree line where your warband assembled this morning, you collapse against a birch tree, your legs finally giving out. Other warriors are scattered through the forest, some sitting, some lying flat, all breathing hard. You listen for the Karnic signals that should tell you what to do next. But for long minutes, there is only the sound of men. Then you hear it. 3 short blasts. Assemble. You force yourself to stand and begin moving toward the sound. Tutus appears beside you, favouring his left leg. Neither of you speaks. There is nothing to say that would fit in words. The remnants of the warband gather in a small clearing, and you count perhaps 40 warriors standing. 20 are missing, either dead on the field or too wounded to walk. Brennus stands on a fallen log, and you feel a wave of relief at seeing him alive. His face is grim. He does not speak immediately, instead looking at each man in turn, making eye contact. This is a form of communication too, acknowledging each warrior's survival, sharing in the collective grief and shock. When he finally speaks, his voice is quiet, hoarse. We are alive. The Romans did not pursue. This means we can regroup. He gestures to 3 warriors. You 3, runner duty. Go to the villages we passed this morning. Use the carved sticks. 5 notches. 5 notches means battle fought, retreat successful, casualties high, warriors returning. Leave the sticks at each village headman's house. Do not stop to talk. Move fast. The 3 warriors nod and sprint into the forest in different directions. This messenger system ensures that news reaches your scattered people before rumors do. Brennus then points to 5 more warriors, including Tutus. Rearguard. Stay here for 2 hours after we leave. Watch the forest path. If Romans come, sprint ahead and give warning. 3 crow calls means enemy pursuing. Understood? Tutus nods, settling himself onto a rock despite his wounded leg. The march back to the village takes 4 hours, double the time it took to reach the battlefield this morning, because wounded men move slowly and darkness is falling. Brennus assigns you to help carry a warrior named Divico, who took a javelin in the thigh. You and another young warrior make a seat with your crossed arms, and Divico sits on your interlocked wrists while draping his arms over your shoulders. This is exhausting work, but it is also strangely meditative. Divico tells you about his previous battles in a quiet voice, partly to distract himself from pain and partly to teach you. Watch for the standard bearers, he murmurs. Romans guard their standards like children. If you see a standard waver or fall, the unit is in trouble. That is when you press. As you walk, you hear a series of bird calls from the forest to your right. 2 cuckoo sounds, then a thrush song. This is the Celtic scouts paralleling your movement, signaling that the path ahead is clear. You are learning that communication continues even in retreat, perhaps especially in retreat when ambush is a constant danger. Night falls completely, but the warband does not stop. Instead, Brennus lights a small torch, and the warriors form a tight column behind him, each man keeping one hand on the shoulder of the man ahead, to maintain contact in the darkness. This is communication through touch rather than sight or sound. The hand on your shoulder tells you where to step, when to stop, when to turn. You reach your village well after midnight, and you are surprised to find it awake and ready. Women and elders have prepared fires, heated water, laid out furs and blankets. The message sticks worked. The villagers knew you were coming and knew you would need care. As you lower Divico onto a pile of furs near a fire, you see your mother approaching with a clay bowl of warm water and strips of clean linen. She does not ask questions. She does not cry, though her eyes are red. She simply begins cleaning the wound on your cheek with gentle hands. This is communication through care. Her silence tells you she is glad you are alive. Her touch tells you she will heal what she can. Her presence tells you that home still exists, even though the world seems broken tonight. Brennus speaks with the village elders in low voices near the central fire, and you see them using hand gestures even now, counting on fingers, pointing to different parts of the village, making sweeping motions that probably refer to defensive preparations. You catch fragments of the conversation. Romans camp 3 valleys east. Will they come here? Must send warning to other tribes. The discussion continues for hours while you sit by the fire, letting your mother tend your wounds. Other warriors are being tended by their families. One older woman is singing a low, keening song, and you know without asking that her son is among the missing. Morning comes too soon. You wake to find yourself still sitting by the dead fire, a wool blanket draped over your shoulders that you do not remember receiving. Your mother must have covered you. Your body is a constellation of pain. Shoulders, back, legs, the wound on your face throbbing with each heartbeat. But you force yourself to stand because you hear the Carnix calling assembly again. 3 short blasts. You limp toward the sacred oak where the warband assembled yesterday morning, a lifetime ago. Perhaps 30 warriors gather this time, all that remain of yesterday's 60. Brennus looks like he has aged 10 years overnight, his face drawn and grey. He speaks without preamble. Romans will come here within days. We cannot defend this village against a legion. We must evacuate to the hill fort 20 miles north. Today. This announcement causes murmuring among the warriors, but Brennus silences them with a raised hand. Runners have already gone to the other villages. We assemble the entire tribe. This is no longer a raid or a skirmish. This is war. He assigns tasks rapidly, using both verbal orders and hand gestures to ensure clarity. 5 warriors will pack essential food stores. 10 will help elders and children prepare for the march. 5 will gather weapons from the forges. The remaining fighters, including you, will scout the eastern approaches and give warning if Romans advance sooner than expected. You join 4 other scouts heading east toward the last known Roman position. This time, there is no warband column, no Carnix signals, no massed communication. Just 5 men moving quietly through forest, using hand signals sparingly and speaking only in whispers when absolutely necessary. The lead scout is an older man named Cingetorix, who fought Romans for 20 years. He teaches you scout signals as you move. A closed fist raised means stop and freeze. An open palm pushed forward means move ahead slowly. 2 fingers pointing at the eyes, then at a direction means I see something there. A flat hand drawn across the throat means danger, retreat now. These signals are different from the warband signals because scouts operate on the principle of stealth rather than coordination. You watch Cingetorix constantly, learning. After 2 hours of careful movement, he raises a closed fist. Everyone freezes. You are learning to trust these signals absolutely. When a scout says freeze, you freeze instantly, without thought, because a moment's hesitation can mean discovery and death. Cingetorix creeps forward on his belly and peers through a break in the undergrowth. He spends perhaps 5 minutes perfectly motionless, just observing. Then he creeps backward and gathers the scouts around him. Roman patrol, 20 soldiers moving west. They will reach our village by tomorrow. He makes the throat cut signal. Time to return and warn Brennus. The return to the village takes half the time because Cingetorix sets a punishing pace once you are clear of the Roman patrol's earshot. As you approach the village, he gives a specific bird call, 2 short cuckoo notes followed by a long one. This identifies your group to any village sentries and prevents friendly fire from nervous archers. An answering call comes from the village perimeter, and you jog into the clearing to find organized chaos. Every family is packing furs, food, tools, weapons. Children are crying, dogs are barking, elders are being helped into rough litters made of poles and hides. Cingetorix runs directly to Brennus and delivers his report in rapid, quiet speech. You cannot hear the words, but you see Brennus's face harden. He strides to the center of the village and does something you have never seen. He takes a large bronze disc hanging from a pole near the sacred oak and strikes it 3 times with a wooden mallet. The resonating gong cuts through all other noise. Everyone falls silent and turns to face him. This is emergency communication. The bronze gong is used only for the most critical announcements. Romans come tomorrow, Brennus announces clearly. We leave within the hour. Pack only what you can carry. Torch everything else. A woman cries out in protest, but Brennus continues. If we leave resources, Romans claim them. We leave nothing. The hill fort has food and water. Trust me, pack now. Move now. The evacuation is a masterclass in crisis communication. Brennus appoints lieutenants who each take responsibility for different groups. Families with young children, families with elders, wounded warriors, livestock. Each group has a designated position in the Exodus column and a specific pace to maintain. You are assigned to help with the wounded, which means you walk near the middle of the column, carrying supplies for the litter bearers. As the column forms and begins moving north, you realize this is similar to yesterday's warband march, but vastly more complex, because you are moving people who cannot fight, cannot run, cannot hide. The Carnic signals are different now. 1 long blast means column halt for 5 minutes, adjust loads, check on elders. 2 short blasts mean pick up pace, danger may be near. 3 blasts still mean emergency, defensive positions. Though what defensive positions a column of refugees could take, you do not want to imagine. Flanking scouts use the same bird call system as before, but now they are also watching for evidence of Roman scouts. Footprints, snapped branches, disturbed earth. Every hour, a runner sprints from the rear of the column to the front, reports to Brennus on the column's integrity, then sprints back. This creates a continuous information flow between front and rear that prevents the column from fragmenting. 3 hours into the march, you hear 3 rapid Carnix blasts. Emergency, defensive positions. Your heart seizes. The column immediately flows to the sides of the forest path, families crouching behind trees, warriors forming a thin, protective line facing backward toward the village you left behind. You drop your supply sacks and draw your sword, taking position beside Tutus, who has his bow strung and ready despite his leg wound. The silence is absolute, except for a baby whimpering somewhere in the hidden refugees. Then you hear it. Hoofbeats. A single rider is approaching fast from the south. Warriors raise weapons, but Brennus holds up a hand. Wait. The rider emerges from the trees, and you see it is one of the scouts Brennus sent to neighboring villages yesterday. The scout's horse is lathered with sweat. The scout slides from the saddle and staggers to Brennus, gasping. You are close enough to hear the report. Romans burned Brannavis's village. 12 dead. They are marching toward the river crossing. Brennus absorbs this information with a stone face. Did they follow the refugees from Brannavis's? The scout shakes his head. Brannavis's people scattered, many to the west. Romans are still searching for them. Brennus nods and hands the scout a water skin. Rest 5 minutes, then ride to the hill fort. Tell them we come with refugees, need space for 200 souls. The scout drinks, remounts, and gallops north. The march resumes, but now there is an edge of panic, barely held in check. Brennus increases the pace, and you hear elders gasping with the effort of keeping up. The Carnix player begins using a new signal you have never heard. A rhythmic pulse of short blasts, one every few minutes. This serves as both a pace setter like a heartbeat to match your stride to, and a morale signal. The sound says, "We are still together, we are still moving, we are still alive." You help an elderly woman who stumbles, catching her elbow and walking beside her for a while. She does not thank you, saving her breath for walking, but she pats your hand once. Communication through touch again. Gratitude, acknowledgement, shared struggle. As afternoon shadows lengthen, you crest a hill and see it, the hill fort. It is an impressive structure, wooden palisades crowning a steep-sided hill, smoke rising from cooking fires within. More importantly, you see people standing on the ramparts, watching your approach. Brennus raises both arms overhead in a large V-shape, holding the position for several heartbeats. This is the peace signal used between Celtic tribes to indicate friendly approach. From the fort, an answering signal. A blue cloth waved from the highest point of the palisade. Entry granted. The refugees let out a collective sigh that is almost a sob. You are safe. For now. Entering the hill fort reveals another layer of communication systems you had never considered. The fort's chieftain, a woman named Cartimandua with silver hair and a voice like iron, greets Brennus at the gate with a formal exchange of oaths. This is ritual communication, words spoken in the ancient tongue that bind tribes together in mutual defense. She touches her forehead, then her heart, then extends her hand palm up. Your people are my people. Your battle is my battle. The fort receives you. Brennus mirrors the gesture and responds in kind. You file through the gates with the other refugees and are immediately directed by warriors wearing red armbands. These armbands, you realize, mark them as Cartimandua's administrators. A warrior with a red armband approaches you, looks at your bloodied shoulders, and points toward a large roundhouse. Wounded and exhausted, there. Food and water inside. Weapons to be stacked at the door. This is efficient communication. Visual identifiers, the armband, combined with clear, short verbal directions. Inside the roundhouse, you find organized care. Women have prepared sleeping pallets in rows. Each pallet has a clay bowl of water, a piece of bread, and a blanket. No one speaks much. The exhaustion is too deep for words. You collapse onto a pallet, drink the entire bowl of water, eat half the bread, and fall asleep before you can finish chewing. You wake in darkness to the sound of a horn, but not a carnix. This horn is deeper, bronze, resonating through the hill fort. One long blast. You sit up, confused, and see other warriors around you also waking and reaching for weapons. An older warrior on the next pallet says quietly, "Dawn watch horn," means sunrise in 1 hour. All able fighters to ramparts. This is information passed warrior to warrior, a communication system within the larger system. You stand, strap on your sword, and file out with dozens of other men. The night is cold and clear, stars brilliant overhead. You climb the timber stairs to the palisade walkway and find your position between two warriors you do not know. The warrior on your left is a woman with short cropped hair and a bow. She nods to you. "First dawn watch?" You nod. She smiles faintly. "Watch the valleys. If you see movement, call motion east or motion south or whatever direction. Loud and clear. The watch captain will decide if it is threat." She points to a warrior standing on a raised platform in the center of the ramparts. That is the watch captain. You see his arm signals. Copy them down the line to ensure everyone sees. This is the distributed communication system of a fortification. Each defender is a node in a network, responsible for watching a sector and passing signals both directions along the rampart. Dawn breaks slowly, painting the valleys below in shades of grey and pink. Your eyes ache from staring into the darkness, but now you can see properly. The landscape is peaceful. Forest, meadows, a silver thread of river in the distance. Then the woman warrior beside you stiffens. "Motion south," she calls clearly. "Tree line. Count of 5. No, 8 figures." The watch captain turns immediately toward her position. She raises her arm and points. The captain looks where she indicates, then raises both arms overhead and claps them together 3 times. This signal is repeated down the rampart by warriors clapping their hands. Danger confirmed. Maintain watch. More figures emerge from the southern tree line. Not 8, 20, 40, more. The watch captain cups his hands around his mouth and bellows, "South approach! Estimated 50! Armor and weapons visible! Roman column!" This information is shouted, not signaled, because speed matters more than stealth now. Within moments, you hear the deeper horn blast again, this time a rapid series. 3 short, 1 long, 3 short. This is the fortress-wide alarm. Below in the fort, you see warriors pouring from buildings, strapping on armor, taking positions. The communication cascade is remarkable. One watchman sees movement, reports it. Watch captain confirms and amplifies. Horn system alerts entire fort. Defenders mobilize. From sight to full readiness in perhaps 2 minutes. The Romans halt at the base of the hill, well out of bow range, and you watch them set up camp with the same geometric precision you saw 2 days ago. They communicate differently than your people, you notice. Roman officers shout commands constantly, and soldiers respond in unison. "Sick," they bark, which you have learned means, "Yes, understood." Everything they do involves audible confirmation. When an officer orders a tent erected, the assigned soldiers shout, "Sick." When an officer orders a ditch dug, the diggers shout, "Sick." This verbal system ensures that orders are received and understood, leaving no room for ambiguity. In contrast, your Celtic defenders communicate through a mixture of signals, shouts, and silent understanding. The watch captain uses hand signals when coordinating archer positions. A closed fist means hold, do not shoot. An open palm pushed forward means ready weapons. A chopping downward motion means loose arrows. You see Cartimandua conferring with her lieutenants near the fort's central fire, and she uses a stick to draw in the dirt, sketching the Roman camp layout, marking positions, planning. This is visual communication, creating a shared mental map that all the lieutenants can see and remember. Brennus joins this council, and you see him point toward different parts of Cartimandua's sketch, speaking urgently. Even from the ramparts, you can tell they are debating strategy. The siege settles into a pattern over the following days, and you learn that siege warfare has its own rhythms of communication. The Romans send heralds twice daily, at dawn and dusk, who approach to shouting distance and deliver speeches in accented Celtic. "Surrender the fort. Swear allegiance to Rome. You will be treated fairly. Resist, and you will be crushed." Cartimandua never responds directly to these heralds. Instead, she has her warriors respond in a different way, by singing. The entire fort's defenders join in war songs that drown out the Roman herald's voice. This is communication through defiance, telling the Romans that their offers are not even worth verbal rejection. At night, the fort uses a fire signal system you had not noticed before. On the ramparts at the 4 cardinal directions stand large bronze dishes filled with oil-soaked wood. When lit, these become blazing beacons visible for miles. Different lighting patterns mean different things. All 4 lit means under attack, need aid. 2 opposite beacons lit means under siege but holding. 1 beacon means all clear, fort secure. You watch as the north and south beacons are lit each night, telling distant allied tribes that the fort is besieged but not fallen. Cartimandua also sends nightly runners who slip out of a hidden sally port on the dark side of the hill and sprint through Roman lines to carry messages to other tribes. On the 5th day of siege, the Romans try a new approach: psychological warfare through sound. They bring up musicians, horn players, drummers, and men with instruments you do not recognize, and begin playing discordant, unsettling rhythms. The noise continues all day and into the night, making sleep difficult, fraying nerves. You realize this is communication of a cruel sort. We can outlast you. We can break your will without breaking your walls. Cartimandua responds by ordering the fort's children to play loudly, deliberately creating chaos and laughter that mixes with the Roman noise. It is strange warfare, neither side engaging directly, but both sides using sound to attack and defend morale. On the 6th day, you notice smoke signals rising from a distant hill to the northeast. 3 columns of smoke, then 2, then 3 again. Cartimandua sees them too, and smiles for the first time in days. She points them out to Brennus. The Brigantes tribe saw our beacons. They send response. 3-2-3 means warriors gathering, aid coming, hold fast. This long-range communication across dozens of miles gives hope to the defenders. The singing from the ramparts that evening is not defiant, but joyful. You join in, your hoarse voice mixing with hundreds of others. The Romans, hearing the change in tone, increase their drums and horns to even louder volume. On the 7th day, a single Roman rider approaches under a white truce flag and requests to speak with Cartimandua directly. This is unusual. Romans typically send heralds, not officers. Cartimandua descends from the ramparts and stands at the gate, 10 paces inside the palisade, while the Roman officer remains 10 paces outside. They speak in Latin and Celtic, taking turns, each making sure the other understands. You cannot hear the full conversation from your position, but you see Cartimandua shake her head repeatedly. The negotiation lasts perhaps 20 minutes. When it ends, the Roman rides away, and Cartimandua turns to address the gathered defenders. He offered us terms. If we surrender Brennus and his warriors who fought at the river, meaning you, refugees from the southern villages, the rest of the fort will be spared. She lets this sink in. I told him to go fuck a she-wolf. A ragged cheer rises from the defenders. She raises her hand for silence. But he also told me something useful. He said, your allies will not arrive in time, which means Roman scouts have seen the Brigantes gathering, which means our allies are gathering. He is worried. This is communication analysis, reading meaning not from what is said, but from what the speaker accidentally reveals. The mood in the fort shifts from endurance to anticipation. That night, you're assigned to the hidden sally port for the first time. 5 warriors, including you, will slip out to scout Roman positions and potentially set fires to their siege equipment. This requires communication in near total silence. The sally port leader, a scarred veteran named Maglos, teaches you the hand signals used for night raids. No words, no sounds, only touch and shadow. A hand on your shoulder with 2 squeezes means enemy spotted, freeze. A hand pulling your tunic means retreat now. A hand pointing means move that direction. Before you leave, Maglos smears your face with charcoal and makes you remove anything that jingles or reflects light. The sally port opens onto the dark side of the hill, away from Roman campfires. You slip out on your belly, crawling through grass still wet with dew. The crawl takes 30 minutes to cover 100 paces. Maglos leads, and each warrior keeps one hand on the ankle of the warrior ahead, maintaining contact in the darkness. You count your heartbeats to keep from panicking. 100, 200, 300. Maglos's ankle stops moving. You freeze. Silence. Then his ankle taps yours twice. All clear, keep moving. This communication through touch is the most primitive and the most reliable. Words can be overheard, signals can be unseen in darkness, but touch is immediate and certain. The raid's objective comes into view. Roman siege towers under construction, dark shapes against the slightly lighter sky. Maglos makes a complex hand signal you memorize by feel. His hand touches your arm, then makes a sweeping motion, then presses down. Spread out, stay low, wait. The 5 warriors spread into a line, each perhaps 10 paces from the next, all facing the siege towers. You can hear Romans talking in low voices, guards posted around the construction. Your job is simple. When Maglos lights his fire arrow as a signal, each warrior is to light their own pre-prepared torch and throw it at the siege tower's wooden frames, then run like hell back to the sally port. You wait, listening to the Romans chat about their families, their rations, their boredom. They are human, just like you, and this thought is uncomfortable. Then you see it. Maglos's fire arrow arcing through the air, landing with a spark on the nearest siege tower. You strike your flint against steel, a skill you practiced 50 times this afternoon. Light your oil-soaked torch, stand and hurl it at the tower frame. 4 other torches fly through the air simultaneously. The Romans shout in alarm. You do not wait to see if the fires catch. You run, following the pre-planned route marked by piles of white stones, visible even in darkness. Behind you, you hear organized Roman shouting. Officers calling orders, soldiers responding with their characteristic, "Sick! Sick!" You reach the sally port with lungs burning and legs trembling, diving through the small opening just as arrows begin hissing through the air behind you. All 5 warriors make it back. The sally port slams shut, and you lie gasping on the ground inside the palisade, while defenders bar the door with heavy timbers. Maglos pulls you to your feet and drags you to the ramparts. "Watch," he says. From the high vantage point, you can see the siege towers burning. Orange flames climb the wooden frames, reaching toward the stars. Roman soldiers are running with buckets, trying to save their construction, but the fire has too much hold. One tower collapses in a shower of sparks, and you hear a ragged cheer from the fort's defenders. This burning siege tower is communication too. It tells the Romans, "We can strike you even behind your lines." It tells the fort's defenders, "We are not helpless victims." And it tells distant allied tribes watching for signals. The fort still fights. Cartimandua appears beside you on the rampart, her face lit orange by the distant fire. She claps Maglos on the shoulder, nods to you and the other raiders. No words needed, her approval is clear. That night you sleep deeply for the first time since the siege began, the image of burning towers flickering behind your closed eyelids. Morning of the 8th day brings a sight that makes your heart soar. Smoke signals from multiple hilltops, all repeating the same pattern. 3-1-3. You do not know this code, but Cartimandua does. She calls the fort together and announces, "Allied tribes arrive by tomorrow, the Brigantes, the Carnanacae, the Venicones, perhaps 1,000 warriors." She pauses, and her face grows serious. The Romans know this too. They will attack today with everything they have, trying to break us before our allies arrive. And she is right. Within an hour, Roman horns sound a complex sequence you have not heard before, and their entire camp begins moving toward the hill in organized units. This is the assault. Cartimandua's defenders take their positions, and you find yourself on the eastern rampart with a stack of throwing spears and a pile of fist-sized rocks. The watch captain walks the rampart, giving final instructions. First volley, spears. Second volley, rocks. Third volley, arrows. Fourth volley, whatever you have left. Then blades if they reach the walls. This clear sequence ensures that defenders do not waste ammunition or create dangerous crossfire. The Romans advance in their characteristic tortoise formation, shields overhead and forward, creating an armoured shell. They move slowly up the hill. Cartimandua waits until they are 30 paces from the wall, then raises her arm. Every defender watches her arm. When it drops, 200 spears fly as one. The assault is a chaos of sound and violence that dwarfs your first battle. Romans reach the palisade and begin hacking at the wooden posts with axes and short swords. You throw rocks down at them, striking helmets and shields, hearing the dull thunk of stone on iron. Beside you, an archer looses arrows as fast as she can draw. The watch captain runs up and down the rampart, shouting orders. East wall, oil here! 2 warriors arrive with a cauldron of heated oil and pour it through gaps in the palisade. Screams rise from below. You try not to think about what you are doing, focusing only on the next rock, the next target. Roman ladders appear, slamming against the palisade. Defenders push them away with long poles, but more ladders come. A Roman soldier appears at the top of a ladder near your position, and you hit him in the face with a rock. He falls backward. Another soldier climbs immediately. The assault continues for hours. You lose track of time. Your arms ache from throwing. Your throat is raw from shouting. Then you hear it. Carnix blasts from outside the fort, from the valleys beyond the Roman positions. Not your Carnix. Allied tribes arriving. The Romans hear it too. Their assault falters. Officers shout orders to regroup. Slowly, the Romans pull back from the walls, reforming into defensive positions as they realize they are now potentially trapped between the fort and incoming Allied warriors. The Allied tribes arrive like a flood. From the ramparts you watch thousands of Celtic warriors pour into the valleys surrounding the Roman camp. Different tribes have different standards and banners. A horse, a boar, a raven, each identifying which clan fights today. The Romans form into their defensive squares, preparing for a pitched battle. But Cartimandua has other plans. She signals the allied tribes, using the beacon fires in a pattern you do not recognize. 1-2-1-2, lit and extinguished rapidly. The effect is immediate. The allied tribes do not charge the Roman positions. Instead, they spread out, surrounding the Romans at a distance, cutting off their retreat routes. This is communication, creating battlefield coordination. Cartimandua telling the allies, do not attack, surround and contain. The Romans realize they are trapped. Their camp commander rides forward under a white flag. This time, it is Cartimandua who descends to negotiate, and Brennus goes with her. You cannot hear the discussion, but you can see the Roman commander gesturing urgently, Cartimandua shaking her head, Brennus pointing back toward the burned southern villages. The negotiation lasts 30 minutes. When it ends, the Romans begin breaking their camp and marching south, away from the hill fort, harried by Celtic warriors who throw rocks and insults, but do not engage directly. The Romans are being allowed to leave, but not with dignity. In the days following the siege, you learn the final communication lessons, how news travels and how stories are shaped. Cartimandua hosts a great feast for all the allied tribes, and during this feast, bards begin composing songs about the siege. You sit near the fire listening as a bard sings of the brave defenders who held the hill for 9 days against Rome's might. 9 days. It was 8. But 9 is a sacred number in Celtic tradition, so 9 it becomes in the song. You hear yourself mentioned, though not by name. Young warriors who raided in darkness and burned the towers of Rome. The story is being formalized, turned into something that can be remembered and repeated across generations. This is oral communication at its most powerful, transforming chaotic experience into narrative that teaches and inspires. Brennus speaks to the gathered tribes, proposing a system of hilltop beacons and runner routes to link all Celtic territories so that future Roman invasions can be met with faster coordination. Some chieftains agree, others resist, fearing it gives too much power to central authority. You realize that communication systems are never neutral. They change the very societies that use them. Later, lying on your pallet, you think about everything you have learned. The carved sticks, the smoke signals, the carnix calls, the hand gestures, the bird calls, the beacon fires, the touch signals in darkness. All of it exists because humans need to coordinate, to share knowledge, to act together even when separated by distance or chaos. You stand on the rampart one final time before leaving the hill fort to return home. The valleys are peaceful, no Roman camps, no smoke except from cooking fires. You look at the beacon braziers, currently cold and empty, and think about how they saved lives by calling allies. You think about the carnix blast that ordered retreat, saving you from dying in a pointless last stand. You think about Tautus's hand on your shoulder in the battle chaos, pulling you right when you could not hear the signals. Communication, you realize, is what separates organized warriors from mobs. It is what allows 50 men to resist 200, or 5 men to burn siege towers while surrounded by enemies. It is as much a weapon as any sword. Brennus approaches, sees you lost in thought. You fought well, he says simply. You nod, not sure what to say. You also listened well, he continues. In battle, listening is harder than fighting. Most young warriors hear the signal and do what feels right instead of what was ordered. You obeyed. That is why you lived. He grips your shoulder, the same gesture Tautus used. Communication through touch. You descend from the rampart and join your people preparing for the journey home. As you walk through the fort gates, you hear a carnix blast behind you. One long note, the all-clear signal, the sound of safety and dismissal. You smile faintly. You know what that sound means now. You know what all the sounds mean. And so, you survived. You learned to read smoke across valleys, to understand horn calls through battle chaos, to trust a hand on your shoulder when you could see nothing else. Ancient warriors communicated through ingenuity born of desperation, through systems built over generations, through trust and discipline, and the simple human need to say, "Here is danger," or "Here is safety," to those who needed to know. Your eyelids are heavy now. The battles are over. The signals are silent. The fort is safe. Rest now, knowing that even in the ancient dark, humans found ways to speak, to warn, to save each other. Good night.